welcome to this edition of the Consultation, Just the Tips with Bob Simon. Today we're going to have one about sexual harassment in the workplace, and retaliation. So we have on today the specialist in this area, Emily Pincin. Emily, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Emily Pincin. I'm an attorney from Kent Pincin Law. My partner and I just started up, and we specialize in employment law and do a lot of cases like this: sex harassment, gender discrimination.
Yeah, and Emily's handled a lot of high-profile cases just like this. Again, this is not actual legal advice. We're just going to walk you through a consultation with a real lawyer in these issues, and I'm going to role-play a client that comes in with a common set of facts that Emily has in her practice. And if you have any questions for Emily or anybody at the Justice Team Network, go to justiceteamnetwork.com, click that button, put in as much detail as you like, and we will get back to you. All right, Emily, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Hi, Emily. My name is Jason, and I found you on the web. And this is confidential, right?
Yes, Jason. Everything you say today is confidential.
Okay. Well, I worked at this. It was actually a law firm, and I got to say, okay, so I'm bisexual, okay, but nobody knew and was supposed to know about that part of my life. A couple of the associates, they found out, and then my supervising attorney found out through them, and just getting harassed at work I was there for 6 months, 6.5 months, and it was brutal. Like, they were sending me pictures of eggplants, like the eggplant emoji stuff all the time, forcing me in the room with the openly gay employee, like, have fun, you two, we know what you're going to do. I mean, it was pretty bad, and I reported it. Nothing happened. I sent it to HR, and they did nothing. And then I actually got written up for work product stuff, and no one's ever had a problem with a work product before, and I think it was just because I was complaining about it's called the F word, constantly putting it in writing, and texting me late at night with just like a meme of like a train ramming through a mountain and then laughing at me, that kind of stuff. It was bad.
Wow. I can't imagine how you're feeling, Jason. I'm sorry that you've had to go through that, particularly, in such a professional setting with people who should know better. So why don't let's back up a little bit. I want to hear a little bit more about some of the things that were said to you. I know you said both your coworkers and your supervisors were making comments toward you. Was that, in the workplace? Were these done in writing, in text messages? How were these made? I mean,
always in the workplace, because this was happening at work, and then we'd have not mandatory, but kind of mandatory happy hour stuff where we'd go out with the other associates and the supervising attorney and some of the paralegals. And they even did stuff like they put those little penis straws on my drink that you see at bachelorette parties, take pictures of me in it, and like I give that awkward laugh, and it's just, then they post it on social media, they tag me in it. I wouldn't repost it because it's just embarrassing. It's like letting the whole world know this thing about me, which I wanted to keep secret. A lot of text messages, yeah.
I get that. And so when was it that you first reported this? Did you go to HR? Did you go to another supervisor?
I went to another supervisor, not mine, because I didn't really understand the workflow with this firm, but I said, hey, they did this to me, I put it in writing, and it was hard to put that in writing and, to admit that thing of, who I am and whatever. And they did nothing.
So you're not aware of any investigation that was performed? You were nobody reached out to you to set up a talk?
No, I even gave them a few screenshots of the text messages and the post on social media from that event, and I heard nothing. It was disheartening.
Okay. And are you aware of anyone else, having similar mistreatment in the workplace ever?
Yeah, so I found out later. So I resigned. So I've not been there for a month or two. I wish I would have talked to you before. I don't know if I was a good move or a bad move, if I should have just stayed and stuck it out and talked to you, but I just couldn't handle it anymore. But I since had reached out that another female there, her name is Jill, she's a lesbian, she's out. She was transferred to my department But she said she had complained and kind of received the same type of old boys club situation at the firm. And she was harassed continuously. She said she reported, nothing happened either.
Okay.
And that was before me. That's what she told me.
All right. So you were sort of the opinion, they didn't do anything for Jill. Nothing's going to change for me.
Yeah. And then nothing did change. I mean,
right.
2 months in or 3 months in, I think I reported this and nothing happened.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. I know you said you reported it to your supervisor. They had you give a statement. Nothing really happened, but you did mention you received some sort of performance write-up afterwards.
Yeah. Like so I reported nothing happens. 2 weeks later, it wasn't even time to do performance reviews. And then I get one and it's just negative, saying my work product's negative and like I wasn't billing as many hours as I should have, even though I was doing everything perfectly right. It's just, I think that was the last straw for me.
Mm-hmm. So the performance write-up, did you sort of believe that to be a retaliatory act towards you after?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. And that's the point at which you resigned. And during your resignation, did you bring up any of this harassment again to the HR or your supervisor?
Yeah, I told them nothing was done. Well, I framed as nothing was done about the complaint that I made, and now complaints are being made about me. I can't do this anymore, and I resigned.
Okay. And what about Jill? Do you know, is she still there? What's her status?
I think Jill is still there. I've heard them say some very mean things to her, but she's still there. She's a single mom, and she needs the money.
I get that. But you're generally friends with her. She's someone that you keep in contact still with?
Yeah, you were friends on social media.
Okay. Well, again, I'm very sorry that all this happened to you. It does sound like, obviously you were harassed based on who you are, your sexual orientation. You were just trying to work professionally in this environment and, you were harassed because of it. And then it does sound like there was some retaliation suffered afterward.
So what are my rights and who are the people that are protected in this? Is me being bisexual something that's protected? What if they're teasing me about my religion? Like what kind of stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in California, under the Fair Employment and Housing Act, sexual orientation is a protected class, as is religion. So if there were any comments based on religion, it would be the same sort of thing. But definitely sexual orientation, gender, race, all protected. So, your sexual orientation of bisexuality, just like Jill's sexual orientation of lesbian, is all a protected class. You're also protected under the Fair Employment and Housing Act when you report unlawful conduct under that statute. So when you went to your supervisor and to HR and said, hey, I'm being treated improperly because of my sexual orientation, and, they wrote you up for it, that can be viewed as retaliation. There's also a potential another claim where it sounds like your employer was on notice of some of this misconduct in the workplace related to, employees' sexual orientation. Jill complained before you started suffering from the harassment, and then you also reported it, and nothing was done in response. And employers do have a duty to investigate and put a halt to that kind of conduct.
So, what if it was just, I'm an Angels fan and they're all Dodgers fan and they're just teasing me because I'm an Angels fan all the time? Is that actionable?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
But I do think that Angels fans should get teased a little bit. But
okay.
Yeah.
Calm down.
Sorry, Jason. No, but that would not be a protected class under the Fair Employment and Housing Act.
So then what do I have to do now? Like is there a time limit for me to do stuff? And then how do I pay you?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, for the time limits, obviously it varies based on certain statutes, but for the Fair Employment and Housing Act, we would have to file, first what's called an administrative charge with the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, which is now called the Civil Rights Division. So you have 3 years from the last bad act. Typically, my office likes to get ahead of that. We don't wait until the last minute to do it, so we would go ahead and do that right away. And then you have a year from that date, essentially from receiving the right to sue, to file a lawsuit. So we would get moving on that pretty quickly. And my office, like many plaintiffs' firms, we work on a pure contingency fee basis. So no money out of pocket. We take a percentage of the overall resolution of the case at the end.
And then what are my damages? How do you even compensate something? Because this affected, I had been to therapy a couple of times. I was in therapy before. It's just been different because I had to talk about this issue, and it's been 2 months. I haven't been able to find a job. I mean, I'm trying. I don't want to take a step down in my career, but like, I'm afraid if they reach out to this firm, they're going to have this performance review. And I don't know. I just feel like I'm having a hard time getting a job.
Right. So first of all, you'd be entitled to economic damages, and that's kind of what you're talking about with your loss of income right now. So let's say you're out of work for 6 months, but you're trying really hard to obtain comparable employment. You would be entitled for your loss of income for those 6 months. And, looking at it from a different angle, if you're making less at your new future job, you may have a future loss of earnings claim as well. You do have a duty to mitigate your damages. So it's good that you're already looking for employment. I would encourage you to continue, looking for employment.
And what does that mean, to mitigate my damages?
So you can't, after resigning, you can't just sit at home and not work anymore. To the extent you can work and you're not placed off of work for one reason or another, you should be out looking for comparable employment.
So should I be saving like these interviews that I'm trying to get and all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. We recommend that you keep records of all of your employment applications, emails with future or potential employers, Indeed job postings that you're applying to, all of those things.
And then how about for evidence of this? Like, I have the text messages, and before I resigned, they obviously shut me out of the firm, but I saved a lot of the emails, and then a lot of stuff happened on Microsoft Teams. That's how our messaging platform was. So I screenshotted some of that, but I don't have access to it anymore.
Right. Whatever you have, obviously, hold on to that. That would be important for us down the line. To the extent that any of that is still maintained by the employer, that would be something that we can ask for during the course of litigation. When we send out written discovery, we can ask them to produce some documents.
And then how long do these things usually last?
It's really hard to give a detailed estimate. It truly depends both on the employer and the course of action that you'd like to take. And, obviously it's ultimately your decision whether we litigate the case, meaning file a lawsuit, or if we think that it's something that can be resolved pre-litigation. If it's something that you'd like to explore pre-litigation, that can typically be resolved anywhere between 3 and 9 months. If we file the lawsuit and go through the whole process, it could be a couple of years.
And what if, they're a law firm, like, why wouldn't they just want to drag this out and, just try to bury us in costs? I've seen what we did on litigation. Why wouldn't they do that to us here?
It's entirely possible that they will do that. But, based on what you've told me, it sounds like there's some pretty strong evidence of harassment and discrimination here. I think that you generally have a strong case and that they'd be hard pressed to go the full distance and try and win this down the line.
And is there a way for you to recover additional penalties from them if they do delay or anything like that?
Sure. There's always ways, if they're being extremely obstructive during litigation, we can definitely, we'll deal with that on our end, filing the motions with the judge and going after them. But there's always some way to try and push them along.
Wow, this makes me feel a lot better. Thank you, Emily.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Well, that was the consultation of Jason. And, Emily, how often do you have these types of facts walk into your office, this kind of things?
Oh, all the time. And, obviously that was a pretty quick recitation of how it would go, but we typically spend anywhere between, 30 minutes and multiple hours consulting with our clients, particularly in these employment claims, and when there's longer term employment, there's a lot to unpack and a lot of different, names being thrown around, where we typically like to take a pretty detailed chronology to really get everything down.
Yeah. And, I assume, your consultations are free for all your clients.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And then, so Emily, thanks for coming on. Go to justiceteamnetwork.com for any questions. For Emily, anybody like Emily, if you have any questions, just go to justiceteamnetwork.com. Emily, thank you for coming on. Hopefully people, if they're having issues at work with harassment or retaliation, that they can reach out and you can give them some good guidance.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for this edition of The Consultation, Just the Tips with Bob Simon. Thank you.